I feel like I'm such a movie junkie. I can learn a lot about somebody by knowing what their favorite movie is and why.
I'm going to start with the movie. That's such a good question because I've seen so many great ones. I'm going to say an old movie that I watched in college, and I've seen it many times since. It's the martial arts epic Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon,
Oh, so
and
good.
I just love the character of the leading actor and his girl on there. I just think they have so much integrity, and it's beautiful. The cinematography, just the scenery, the music. It's beautifully done. And I remember I watched that when I was just kind of getting serious into martial arts, and I remember thinking I want to be a man like him. Like the lead character in there.
Yeah.
He's so noble. He's so strong and powerful, but he's kind. And I always thought if you're kind but you're weak, you kind of have to be kind. But the character that makes all other characters possible is strength. Because if you're strong and you choose to be kind or you choose to be compassionate, you don't have to be, but you choose it. And that always really resonated with me. I remember thinking I want to be like that character. So I would say that's it's an old one, but
I
that's my
love that,
favorite.
man. And there's a stoicism to him.
In terms of 2024, oh sorry.
Oh, I was just saying there's a stoicism in that character where it's like I can't really explain it. He's a badass, but you don't really understand why. And he's just he's so humble while also having so much strength. It's like I really, really love that. And I love that character. Welcome to the On the Edge podcast with your host, Scott Groves. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, it's Scott Groves with the On the Edge podcast. I am here with my new friend, Lawrence Dunning, and just reading his bio and looking over his Instagram, here's a few things I can tell you about Lawrence. He is a realtor, but more importantly to me, he's like a second degree black belt in jiu-jitsu, which means he was a super, super early adopter. He and his whole family are gorgeous. He has an accent, so I was just joking offline before he jumped on, like, good-looking guy with an accent. He must be here to sell me something. But I know from being introduced to him by my buddy Hector that this is just a super good, heart-forward guy, and we're going to have a conversation, just learn about your background, because this whole year with the On the Edge podcast, we're trying to bring in more realtors, financial professionals, loan officers, instead of just doing a general variety show. And when I put the word out about that, my buddy Hector, who also just started his jiu-jitsu journey, he's like, hey man, you have to talk to my buddy Lawrence. He's a badass realtor. He's a badass black belt, which I think these things kind of go together. When you're a black belt in one area of your life, you tend to aspire to be a black belt in other areas of your life. So first of all, thanks for coming on, Lawrence. I know you got a lot on your plate, and I appreciate you making time from us from the cold city of Chicago right now.
Scott, it's such a pleasure. Thank you, brother. And I want to say now we're official. Massive congratulations to you, because that purple belt you just got in jiu-jitsu, for me, it's the hardest belt. And I nearly quit a dozen times before getting my purple belt. I was a blue belt for I think 5 or 6 years. So it's such a hard belt. And listen, a good purple belt can catch a black belt. So kudos to you, man. A purple belt jiu-jitsu is no joke. So I want to give you a special shout out for that.
I appreciate that, man. And because you're like 10 years farther along, maybe even more, of this journey of jiu-jitsu, for people that are going to immediately sign off because they think we're going to talk about jiu-jitsu for an hour, we're not. But I just want to hear from you, because I've been asking other black belts, like, what does it mean stylistically or strategically to go from a blue belt to a purple belt and a purple belt to a brown belt? Because I think there's also a business conversation in here when we start to think about those skill sets of moving. Like, in my mind, it's like white, you're just starting. Blue, you're kind of learning how to get your ass kicked without getting injured. What does it mean to go from blue to purple and like purple to brown in your mind?
So I think purple belt is when you really come into your own. You develop your style, and then they talk about brown belt as being the bridge between purple and black belt. So really, purple belt is the start of you, because jiu-jitsu is so vast. I've been training for over 20 years, and I'm teaching. Actually, I was teaching this week some stuff that I used to do as a blue belt, and I completely forgot. And I'm kind of re-looking at this whole system now of like a tight game from the bottom, and it's so cool because jiu-jitsu has so many different approaches. You can find something that appeals to your body type, that appeals to your personality. You can have a very aggressive, tenacious, top game smashing style, or you can have an incredibly intellectually unique worm guard from the bottom, like very, very technical, using all these fancy grips. And you can really do, or you can have like an old school, like nogi wrestling style. So you can find a style that works for you. And that's what's so beautiful. And that's what's great about jiu-jitsu competition is it's two random people. You don't know their style. They don't know your style. And you just meet on the mats and you battle it out and you see who comes out on top. So it's really, really beautiful. But I would say purple belt is really where you've found your style. And now it's just going to be a lot of refining from now until black belt.
That's awesome, man. Well, I have found my style because I have the old man, 45 years old and over 200 pounds, where I just hang on people's heads till they take a sloppy shot, and then I land on top and ride them out, and I win the match 5-0. That's my style. Like maximum pain, maximum control, maximum weight on their chests, and that seems to work for me. So I'll just continue to refine that. Maybe learn a couple other things on the way.
I love that.
So tell us a little bit about your backstory, because I'm guessing with your accent, you are not native to Chicago.
Yes, I actually I got into martial arts and I was doing a history degree in England. So in England, the education system is a bit different. When you're 17, you're a year away from finishing high school. You have to basically pick a subject to do in college. And I was like, well, I like history. And then I'm 21 years old. Like, what the hell am I going to do with my life with a history degree? So I stayed on. I got into an MBA program in finance, and I got this MBA. And at the time, I was really getting into martial arts. And back then, there was no jiu-jitsu was just starting. So I was doing a form of nogi jiu-jitsu, and I was doing Thai boxing in England. And I was like, man, I really want to have a few years off before I start my career. And my dream was to go to Thailand and have a bunch of professional Thai boxing fights and just, enjoy life on the beach and chase girls and be a young man, before I start my career. And I ended up, my uncle met a guy at a party. My uncle was a very successful photographer, lived in London, had a very rich social circle, and he was just chatting to a guy about, oh, my nephew just graduated, he's got so much potential. And this guy's like, oh man, my company's looking for traders. We're option traders. We need guys like your nephew. Have him call me. So I call this guy, and I'm thinking, I'll work for 3 months, get a bit of cash, and then just travel the world. And he's like, well, come in for an interview. And I go in this office, and I see these young guys making crazy money. And I'm thinking, if they can do it, I can do it. So I was like, maybe I'll put the traveling on hold and just work for a few years and then make a lot of money and then do whatever I want.
Right.
And so they ended up sending me first to Holland, then to Wall Street, and then to Chicago. So I got to travel a lot with them, and they paid me well for a young man. But then as soon as I started making money for them, I realized I was getting paid about 5% of what I was making. So I decided to quit and start my own trading company in Chicago. So that's how I ended up in Chicago. Chicago was such a great place. I came here June the 4th, beautiful sunny sky, lovely warm day. The people are very friendly in the Midwest. And my company put me up in downtown Chicago on the 40th floor of a high rise with a view of the lake and the city. And I'm thinking, man, as a young man, I'm like, this is all I could dream for. And then the accent opened up a few doors with some young ladies there, and I'm like, I'm loving life, So that's what made me fall in love with Chicago. And then I was working in New York for the winter, and then they said, we really want you to stay in the New York office. How do you feel about that? And I was like, yeah, it's not going to happen. That's not going to work for me. I want to go back to Chicago. So that's how I ended up in Chicago.
And you didn't leave after the first winter in Chicago? I mean, I guess it's cold in the UK where you're originally from, but Chicago is a special kind of chilling when the air's coming off that lake. And it's like, I mean, I sat in at a baseball game when it was, mild temperatures, 55, 60 degrees or something. It was like kind of a cold fall day. And I was freezing, man. I was like, no, this is a different kind of cold when the water's like whipping off the river. So that didn't send you packing for Thailand or Texas or Southern California after that first winter? Hey, this quick interruption is brought to you by me, Scott Groves, the host of the On the Edge podcast. This podcast is brought to you by me. I'm a loan officer who can help you with a mortgage in all 50 states across the United States. I also coach loan officers. So if you are a home buyer who's looking to get a mortgage, if you're a realtor who's looking to partner with an awesome loan officer, or if you're a loan officer looking for coaching, get in touch with me. It's those sources of revenue that allow us to produce this podcast and get out a new episode to you every week for the last couple of years. So if you're looking for a mortgage, if you're looking for a mortgage lender to partner with, or you're looking for a mortgage coach, I'm your guy. Now back to your regularly scheduled programming.
You just reminded me of a story when I was walking to this gym. Back then I would take the bus and then walk a few blocks to go to these different gyms to train. And I was walking to this Thai boxing gym. and the wind blew, and I was wearing all these winter clothes, and it felt like I was standing there naked. And I remember being like, "Holy shit, it's cold." But you know what, Scott? The extreme climate builds character, and you just what you have to do. I'm actually leaving to Hawaii tomorrow. What you have to do is you just have to have enough money where you can get to warm places in the winter.
Yes.
And it makes you. I will say this: it makes you appreciate the summer, though. Like in the summer, people in the Midwest are just so happy. They're just doing everything they can because they know that they don't have. It's not like San Diego where every day is a beautiful, perfect day.
Right.
You know, we really appreciate the summers, but I like seasons. I'm thinking now. I'm a new dad. I got a 3-year-old, and I'm thinking it would be awesome if we lived in Hawaii. But I like the idea of resilience. I like the idea of seasons and him getting out there, helping me, salt the driveway when it's minus whatever. I kind of like that. I like the idea of having that hardship. And then when he's old and he leaves home and I'm old, then maybe I think about relocating to Hawaii or joining you in Vegas, you know?
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, I can tell you the one thing my wife does not like about Vegas, she kind of knew this before we moved up here, but it's not uncanny to get 100-degree temperature swing in the same year, because when it's winter in the high desert, people think of desert for warmth. It's like, no, desert is defined by lack of precipitation. And it's like, it will get, 5, 10, 15, 20 degrees here. And then 6 months later, it'll be 120. And my wife is like, where did we move? Why did we move here? I'm like, well, because the taxes are way better than California. That's why we moved here. But
well, Scott, listen, I did the same thing. Sorry to cut you off, but I did the same thing. I moved. I'm kind of stuck with my real estate business in Chicago now. So I have a lot of business there, but I was thinking, the politics there, the crime, the taxes, I'm just like, this is not where I want to raise a family. So luckily I have 2 friends that live on the same street in Northwest Indiana. And they found this place, and my one buddy is texting me at 1 a.m. I'm a night owl. I was doing a bit of work, a little bit high, relaxing, thinking about life. And he sends me this text. He's like, "Lawrence, I found the house to raise your family." And long story short, I ended up putting an offer in before I even saw it. And we're so happy. We did a rehab, and I'm on 8 acres. Looking out, I've got my backyard with deer in the backyard, and it feels so nice to get out of Chicago.
That's
awesome. I had this big fear of like having this long commute, but honestly, in real estate, I'm on the phone all the time anyway. It's just my car is my mobile office, and I don't mind the commute at all.
Yeah.
So it was the best decision I ever made was to go to Northwest Indiana for the same kind of reasons as you. It's a very libertarian state.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of relocating if you need to. So most importantly, did you ever make it to Thailand to have those Thai boxing fights, or did you just get in a few scraps in gyms in Chicago and didn't get your time in the ring in a real match, quote unquote?
So I'm a big goals guy, and I wrote a lot of goals down. And when I finished my fight career and I retired, there was 2 goals that I had that I never did. I never had a professional boxing fight. I got my boxing license, my pro boxing license in Chicago, but I never actually had a pro boxing fight, and I never had a pro fight in Thailand. But you know what? At that time when I walked away, I was like, I've done enough. If you'd asked 22-year-old me, would you be happy with as many fights as I had and competitions? I'd have said that's more than you could even hope to dream of. So I never got to fight out there, but I did train out there 3 times. I got all of my tattoos were from Thailand. I ran the Bangkok Marathon. I had some really great memories in Thailand. So I've been there 5 times. So I fell in love with it. When I got my first job, they wanted me to start in 2 weeks, and I said, listen, I just been working really hard. I did a degree, then I did an MBA right after. And I'm a hard worker, and I just need some time to myself. Can I start a month later? And they said, okay. So I went there for 6 weeks, and I trained for a month, and then I traveled for 2 weeks. And that was the first time I trained like a professional. And it was so nice. It was so simple. Like when you look back now, I'm sure you know what it's like. As you get older, you just become attached to more and more things, and you get used to a better standard of living. But I was out there in Thailand with a tiny bag and a couple of changes of clothes, and I was renting a room, just a room, not a house, a room in this place in Chiang Mai, and I would just get picked. I got friendly with my main instructor, and he would like scoot by on his moped and pick me up and take me to the gym. We'd train 3 hours in the morning, take me back. I'll take a nap, have some lunch, go back 3 hours in the evening, and I just did that 6 days a week for a month, and it was absolutely beautiful. And I said to myself, my goal is to make enough money where I can take a sabbatical and do some kind of professional fighting. And I ended up doing that. I did that from 30 to 35, where I took a sabbatical from work and I fought professionally. So I did it not in Thailand though, in the Midwest. So
what did you fight?
Similar goal.
Did you move to boxing?
No. So when I was in my 20s, I was working in finance, and I went to a jiu-jitsu school, and they had a really good boxing program there, and I got really caught up in the Chicago boxing. So the Chicago Golden Gloves is such a a storied historic event. Muhammad Ali came up from Louisville when he was Cassius Clay, and he won the Chicago Golden Gloves. It's got so much history, and so I fell in love with that. I ended up focusing on boxing. So I won the Chicago Golden Gloves. I got robbed of a bad decision for the state championships. I was trying to qualify for the nationals, and then I realized that high level amateur boxing is amateur. It has amateur judges. The style, it's like fencing. If I touch you with a jab, it's the same as a massive left hook that knocks you down.
Right.
It's a very amateur system. So then I got to the stage where I was very wealthy in my late 20s from trading, and I had this passion of jiu-jitsu and boxing, and I was like, man, I've got a whole lifetime to make money, but I have a very small athletic window to pursue professional combat. So I took 5 years off, and I just did a whole bunch of physical things. I ran ultra marathons. I had 10 professional fights, MMA, and I just tried to push my body and my mind every which way I could.
Yeah, one of the things that I saw on your Instagram was you running a marathon, I'm guessing in the Arctic or the Antarctic or something, and you said, I hope I'm the first ever jiu-jitsu black belt that has also run a marathon on all 7 continents, to which I responded, hey, good on you, and fuck the cold. Like, I could probably force myself to do a marathon. I've done a couple half marathons. I think I could mentally tough my way through a marathon if I had to, but not in 20-degree weather. Like, I hate the cold with such a passion. There's no chance I could finish. Whatever, dude. I'll just die 2 miles in. So tell us about this 5 years of pushing your body like a madman.
Yeah, so that marathon was last year. So that was after I retired from fighting. But with the fighting, when I was fighting professionally, I was in such good shape. I remember I had 2 MMA fights back to back, probably, I don't know, 8 to 10 weeks apart. And in between them, I went to South Africa on my 35th birthday, and I ran a 35-mile hilly ultramarathon in between while I'm still training. And then the next week, I think there was an Olympic triathlon just happened to be in Cape Town. I was like, I'll do that too. And I rented a bike and a wetsuit, and I did that. I was just in such good shape. I was trying to see, like, I'm not a natural athlete and I'm not a natural fighter. I was a very average kid. I had an introverted side. I was kind of shy. And so for me, fighting was the scariest thing I could imagine, being in a pair of lycra shorts in front of thousands of people on a pair of 4-ounce gloves going to war. And so I love the idea of just facing fears. I think you get so much from moving towards things that scare you. And so the growth that I got from that it's put me in such good stead for life. I left millions of dollars on the table because my company was doing so well. And I just gave it to one of my guys. What I should have done is kept the ownership and just kept making money while I stepped away. But I was done with that life. I gave the company away. And I was thinking in my head, in 5 years or however many years, I'll go back to trading because it was so profitable at the time. And in those 5 years, the high frequency trading came in, and I lost that business. So with hindsight, it was the worst financial decision, but it was the best life decision. I have my shorts and gloves from my last fight, and I have it in my office, or I have it in my gym now in my basement. And I look at that picture sometimes, and it was so hard that, like my Tuesday was my hard sparring day. And I would get up in the morning, I would teach a Nogi class in the city. Then I would come home, have some food. I would drive an hour to Crystal Lake to a Team Curran, my MMA gym. I would do a boxing private. Then I would do a Muay Thai class. Then I would do hard MMA sparring. And then I would do some conditioning and drive home. And I used to wake up Tuesday morning just hating my life. Like, what am I doing? But it's so funny. It was so hard at the time, that lifestyle. But looking back, they're the most fond memories. And it's actually a great metaphor for anyone listening who's going through a tough time. It's so difficult to see it. We can't see it when we're in the midst of the storm. But so many times, if you talk to very, very successful entrepreneurs, multi-millionaires, they've made and sold and built all these incredible companies. A lot of the time, they'll say their fondest memories of when they were in the trenches and they were struggling and they were still worried about paying rent next month, and they were going all in on themselves trying to build something. And so I just think that's such a good analogy. It's such a good thing to remember. We're not happiest when we've arrived, when we've ticked the box, when we've got the goal. We're happiest when we're improving and we're in the middle of the storm and we're progressing towards our goals. And a lot of the time, we only see those times later on. And one of my big things that I've been working on the last year is I had this realization. I was at a bachelor party in Mexico, and I was just thinking, so many times in my life, I've thought, if I can just get through this next 4 weeks and I can get this MMA fight done, then I can relax, because there's so much pressure.
Right.
And I realized that you'll go through, I don't know if you've seen that comedy, that Adam Sandler movie, Click.
No.
That movie, Click.
Oh, is that the one where he can control
Yes.
everything with his remote control? Yes, I have seen it.
And it's such a great example, because if I look back at there's so many times in my life where I would have done that. I would have fast forwarded through these really hard periods of my life. But now I look back and they're the periods I'm the fondest memories. So I decided, no, you, me, anyone listening to this, no one is where they want to be in life. We all have goals and aspirations that I'm not going to wait to get there to be happy. I'm going to be happy, and I'm going to choose happiness because I have the confidence that I'm going to connect the dots in the future, and I'm not going to wait to get what I want to be happy. And that's just been such a big mind shift, and it's been wonderful. It's really changed everything for me.
Man, I have so many follow-up questions from what you just said. And I was trying to take some notes furiously as you were talking. And you used one of my favorite words, which is like becoming, right? Like the journey of becoming. And I don't know if you can see this, but on my
becoming, yes.
On my forearm, I recently got a tattoo, becoming, because I'm about to turn 45. And I come from a long generation of men who did not do particularly well after 45 years old, right? Either life kind of beat them down, they had some bad luck, they made some bad decisions. I come from a long line of men who didn't go to their father's funeral, right? And I'm trying to break that cycle by just reminding myself, hey, you're constantly working on becoming something better. It's one of the reasons I've fallen in love with the journey of jiu-jitsu, because I also boxed for about 10 years. I was okay. I had 5 amateur fights, of which I won 4 of them. I got a split decision on one of them. I lost that one. He beat the shit out of me. I just, the judges were favorable to me on that one. So technically I'm undefeated in boxing, but I know in my heart I really lost one of those fights. But then at about 40, when I started having kids, because I had kids later in life, I'm like, maybe getting punched in the head is not the best decision. So I moved over to jiu-jitsu, and just this idea of finding new things to become good at, or just continuing to strive to do better. I love that. But one of the follow-up questions I wanted to ask you, it's really easy when you've made it through the muck. And I'm always trying to think about, where are my coaching clients, the listeners, where are they rolling their eyes, right? And it's really easy when you've made it through the muck to say, oh, those hard times were the best, right? And the entrepreneur who's now a millionaire, he can think back to the time when he went all in and he could barely pay rent, but somehow he made payroll and the company became the company. But the world also has a lot of stories of people who didn't make it through that muck, right? They still can't pay their rent, or they ended up penniless, or they ended up without the big business success story. From your journeys around the world, multiple countries, starting multiple businesses, I get the feeling that you know and influence a lot of people. What do you think the difference is between the people who make it through the muck and can share the story about how the tough times, made them stronger, et cetera, and the people who don't make it through the muck, and they're just like that stereotypical, broken man leading a silent life of desperation, right? Or whatever that Ernest Hemingway quote is. It's like, I think about this sometimes, like Instagram is full of all the guys who made it through the muck, and now they have the cool origin story like Batman. But there's also a lot of guys on Instagram who don't brag about the fact that they're still living in the shit on their, sister's couch, and they're dead broke, or they had to declare bankruptcy. Like, what's the difference between the people that make it and the people that don't make it? Because I have a feeling maybe you have some insight here.
That's a great question. But before we even talk about that, I want to say kudos to you, Scott, because you've realized, like you said, you come from a long line of people who didn't have better, they didn't do better later on in life, and you're determined to break that. And I think our past, or our family's past, does not determine our future. So kudos to you, because if I was a betting man, I would bet on you having an amazing back end of your life, because you're already thinking about this, and you don't want to avoid those mistakes. But excuse me. But in answer to your question, it's a very, very easy answer. I'm going to quote my countryman, Winston Churchill. If you're going through hell, keep going. And it's as simple as that. And I'll give you some examples, because like you said, it's easy for someone to say, oh, it's okay for you to say that you've made it. Well, I'll talk about my finances. When I was young, I had nothing, and I worked my ass off, and I took really big risks as a trader. And I was worth just over $3 million, but when I turned 30. And then I had some bad luck, and I spent my money like a playboy, and I enjoyed myself. And I pretty much blew through all of that money. And I went through 2009, the stock market crashed. A lot of my investments went to shit. I invested in some startups that went under. I had a lot of bad luck, and I made a lot of bad decisions. And luckily, I did put a little bit into a big commercial property. That was the only thing I had left. Then I rebuilt myself when I came back. My second career in real estate, I worked really hard. I started investing with developers, doing rehab projects, doing taking what I thought was smart risks, and I did really well for a while. And then I went all in with a partner of mine who was at my wedding. And when COVID came, we had 9 projects going, and he got kind of screwed over by some of his subs. and he was kind of a weak person, and he just decided to completely fuck me over, and he basically declared bankruptcy, and there was a few $1 million that suddenly are missing, and I have no idea where they went. And it's been a 3-year disaster with lawsuits and everything. And I ended up trying to help the other investors out because I'm a good guy, and it cost me a few $100,000 more and a few years more of stress. And that all culminated with me losing everything and some friends and family losing everything. And I'm not going to let my dad was invested, so I'm not going to let him lose a penny. So basically, I took on debts because I'm not going to let them lose money. So I'm speaking not with a guy with a lot of zeros in my bank account. I'm speaking with a guy who's very financially, for a person I'm turning 45 too. And I've made a lot of money in my life, and I've worked really hard, and I've taken a lot of risks. So I should have a massive amount of wealth, and I don't. But it doesn't bother me because I have the confidence that with my skill set, I can get that pretty easily. And it's kind of like there's a great story. I think it's Alex Camozzi was talking about. He spent 5 years building up all these gyms and making all this money, and then his partner screwed him over, and he lost everything. But in year 6, he made just as much money as he made during those 5 years, because it's not just about the money you make, it's about how you grow as a person.
Right.
And so I have that same confidence where I think this year is going to be the best year I've ever had in real estate. And I think I'm going to do really, really well because I haven't just been doing nothing while I've been getting screwed over by different people. I've been improving and investing myself. So basically what I'm trying to say is don't have that cop out. If anyone's listening to this and they're going through tough times, what you said is very true. It's like the survival of the fittest. It's easy for them to say, I did it because I did. And listen, there is a lot of luck involved in life. And I think I'm incredibly lucky in many ways. But I think for a guy with an MBA degree who's read probably 300, 400 books on finance and entrepreneurship, and I think I've made smart decisions. I think I've also been very unlucky with certain partnerships I've had and certain decisions I've made financially. So don't use it as an excuse if you're in the middle of the ship right now and you can't see a better future. Just keep going, because I promise you there'll be opportunities that will come up. You'll get calloused and strong and wiser, and you'll grow from it. And if you just keep going, you will come to the other side. And it's one of those things where it's not, for me, time is an incredible thing. It's the most precious resource we have, right? We can always make more money, but I wouldn't trade Warren Buffett's wealth to be 92. What's the point of that? He's at the end of his life. So, we have something that billionaires don't have. We have way more time. And if you do the right things, you make time your ally. And if you do the wrong things, you make time your enemy. So, for instance, if you're in good shape and you start eating like shit and missing workouts, you're still going to look good in a week. You can look good in a month, maybe. But in 2 years, you're not going to look good because you made time your enemy. Same way, if you're out of shape and you have one good day where you crush it at the gym and you eat salads and drink water, you're probably not going to look very different the next day. But if you keep doing that, you will look better. So I think that's when you're in the really bad moments, what you have to do is you have to just keep doing the right things every day. And you make time your ally. And I look at that where, when you're young, you have those heartbreaks and things like that. I remember I had a really bad breakup and I was really bummed out about relationships. And one of my best friends said to me, "You'll be okay." And I said, "Well, why do you say that with so much confidence?" And he said, "Because you do the right things every day. You're still working hard at your business. You're still going to the gym. You're still going to the jiu-jitsu mats. You're still seeing friends. You're still putting yourself out there. You're still continuing. You're putting one foot in front of the other. One day goes to the next. You're doing the right thing. So it's just a matter of time." And of course, a week later I was fine or whatever it was. So just keep doing the right things and make time your ally. And listen, if you're already unlucky, it might take some time. I'm not going to say it's going to be easy, but eventually you will get through it if you do the right things on a consistent basis.
That's so good, man. Everything you just said, like, I'm trying to think, distilling that down to something I've heard before. And I don't know where I heard this first. I'm sure Gary Vee stole it from somebody who stole it from somebody who stole it from somebody. And it's like this idea of like humans way overestimate what we can do in a year, but we way underestimate what we can do in a decade. And whether we go back to the beginning of the conversation of jiu-jitsu, there was like a year into jiu-jitsu where the black belt, shout out to Jeff Martin, who helped me get started in this journey when I was still down in LA. He's 140 pounds soaking wet. I was much heavier than I was like 225 pounds, just throwing me around like a fucking rag doll every day. And like a year in, I'm like, oh, I haven't learned shit. He still just scoops underneath me, butterfly guard, roll me over, hold my leg down, choke me. I'm like, awesome. I know exactly what's coming in a year and I can't stop it. But then 4 years later, still can't beat Jeff. But I've lost 30 pounds. I feel more confident. Like my instructor has felt the confidence to give me a purple belt. So I must be doing something right. And it's like 10 years in, I might be a black belt, whereas a year in, I thought I had done nothing. But it's like you said, those foundational skills, like you're learning along the way. And at some point, I'm going to have a horrific injury because everybody in all sports does. And then you're going to have to come back from that. And it's just like, man, you're really solidifying in my mind, like you can make a lot of bad decisions in a year. But if you keep moving forward over the course of a decade, something good is going to happen. So tell me a little bit about that.
Scott,
sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say really quickly that I'm so glad you brought that up because that's one of my favorite sayings. And I heard it from Tony Robbins, but I don't know who the first person said it. Probably someone he stole it from too. And what is that saying? It's saying don't have a medium-term horizon, have a long-term horizon. And I always say that when I give people advice in real estate, I always say, so many people are so short-sighted. They try and chase a commission and they burn a bridge. And I will do a couple of for free if I'm going to get a relationship with someone who's going to feed me for a decade. And I always say, just have a long-term time horizon. My first year in real estate, I made 40 grand and I invested about 10 grand back in marketing and just whatever it was, tools for the business. I made 30,000 in a year of hustling in real estate. I could have made that in an afternoon trading. It was so depressing. But I wasn't that depressed because I knew that I wasn't trying to make money the first year. I was trying to take shitty business to learn the business and just get out there and be busy and learn the city and learn and be a white belt again. I was used to being a black belt in finance and trading, and now I'm a white belt in real estate and I wanted to learn. And there's people that have the approach where they're just, I wouldn't do that business. That's not going to pay well. They've been in the business 10 years. I knew more than them by 18 months. So I just think having a long-term time horizon for everything is such a good it's such a good mindset. And also, if you ever come to a fork in the road of your life and you ask yourself, you might be confused because you're thinking, well, what would myself today or tomorrow or next week think? If you ask yourself, what would Scott at 55 think? I promise you that'll be your answer. Is just put yourself 10 years out and say, what path do I want my life to go? What's going to be a better thing for my future self? And that's just, so having that, I just want to emphasize that point. Having that long-term mindset is something that everyone I admire has. And it's something that I really try and think long-term.
I love that. When you were talking, the reason I noticed the latency issue on our internet here was you said something that I hope did not get cut off or a little blurbled. You said something to the effect of like, people will chase a commission and burn a bridge. A lot of realtors and loan officers listening to this podcast. Can you talk a little bit more about that, where you've seen this, show up with other quote unquote financial professionals, or maybe back to your trading days or things that you've seen in real estate? Can you talk a little bit more to this idea of like, don't chase a commission if it's going to burn a bridge?
Yeah. So I know it's a bit of a cliche, but most people, when they're doing real estate, you're dealing with massive amounts of money, and people get really funny when money's involved. You even see good friends, and suddenly you ask them to borrow $1,000, and they get all weird about it. So some people are cool with money, some people it kind of freaks them out. So I would say random book recommendation: Morgan Housel's The Psychology of Money. It was recommended to me a few years ago, and I read it, and I was like, it's okay. And then I actually just reread it, and for whatever reason, I wasn't in the right place the first time. But it's a fantastic book, and it just talks about trying to understand money. Money is such a unique thing. It's an amplifier for a lot of people. If you're a poor brick and I give you $2 million, you're just going to be a rich brick. And if you're already happy with nothing and you get money, you're probably going to be a happy millionaire. So money is an amplifier. And I really think having a healthy relationship with money is a good thing. So The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel is a fantastic book. But in answer to your question, so real estate is, when you're dealing with massive amounts of money, people want to work with people that they like and that they trust. And one of my biggest lessons from my trading days, when I worked before I started my own company, I worked at this trading company, and it was a global company. The head office was in London. We had offices in Holland. I think we opened one in Sydney. We had New York, Chicago. And then one day I came to work, and they said, "I'm so sorry. We're firing, like, it was 20 people in the office. We're gonna go and just be a Chicago office. We're gonna separate from the main office in London. We're gonna let go of 50% of the traders." And I was like, "Oh shit!" And I wasn't concerned about my job because I knew I was really good at what I did. But they let go of about 10 guys, and of those 10 guys, one of them was my good buddy, and he was really competent. I was really surprised they let him go. And they kept this one guy. And he never really made any money trading. But he was a hilarious guy. He was funny. He was just always cracking jokes. He was great energy, that was such a pivotal moment for me, because I realized that That's something they don't teach you in business school. People want to be around people that they like, that they respect, that they trust. And that's an example of just good energy and humor and fun. You need that when you have a very high stakes trading environment. But it's the same with real estate. I want to be the best advice that I ever heard, and I wouldn't have got screwed over by this contractor if I had known this when I was young, is from Nabil Ravikant. And he said, when he gets a business opportunity, and listen, the guy's a crypto multimillionaire, so it's easier for him to say this, but he said when he gets a business opportunity, the first thing is not, is this going to make money? It's the people that are involved in this. Do I want to see his name pop up on my phone? Do I want to have dinner with him and his wife? It's the personal aspect. Do I want to be around that energy? And it's so funny when I look back at that relationship with that contractor who screwed me over, is he had everything right on paper and he said the right things, but for whatever reason, I never hung out with him socially. I didn't really like his energy, and he invited himself to my wedding, which was kind of weird, but I didn't really want him there, and he didn't really fit in with the other people there. It was very, very, and these are all things I kind of realized afterwards. It's easy when you look back, right? You have the wisdom of hindsight, but I love that approach. So it's the same with business. Like, be a person who adds value, and they have integrity, and they're good communicators, and you trust them. And so build relationships in business. So when you think about a deal, in lending or as a broker, it might be a few months looking, and then the closing is about a month. It's short term. That most of my business is referral business. I'm working with the same developers. I'm working with multiple buyers. I'm working with friends and family of past clients. It's all relationships, because I don't try and maximize. And people. I remember a guy in my office saying Lawrence is stupid because he takes listings below what he could. He's bragging that he took 7% for a listing of his uncle in Greece, and it's like, well, your uncle in Greece doesn't know any better. And that's not really my approach to business. My approach is, I think I'm going to make a lot of money, a lot in the future, and I've made a lot of money in the past by thinking big. And thinking big is not about one deal. It's about hundreds of deals, from having a really good reputation and having integrity and being kind and being thoughtful and helping people out. So, for instance, I'll give you a perfect example. I'm trying to buy. So I live in Cedar Lake, Indiana, and I live in the country. I'm about 12 minutes away from the actual lake, and there's a lake house in the lake that I really want to buy. And it'll be a great Airbnb. It'll be a good investment. And my son is 3, and I can just see a future, and we're hoping to be blessed with more kids, where we can actually enjoy a lake house and get a boat and have that kind of life. But in the meantime, I just want to rent an Airbnb. And I had the inspection this morning, and I'm not sure if she did this deliberately, but the seller was there. I opened the door at 10 o'clock, and I walk in. She's like, "Oh, sorry. I thought it was at 2 o'clock. Do you mind if I stay?" And I said, "No, that's fine." And my wife and my son were there, and we came in, and the inspector's walking around, and I'm chatting to her, and she's really nice. And she's telling me about how she doesn't want to move. She loves the place, loves the view. She's showing me photos of the parties they had there. And her husband has stage 4 cancer. And then there's a few things that come up in the inspection. It's, mold in the attic, needs some ventilation. Some of the stuff on the deck foundation is not great. These things that normally I would ask for. And I'm just like, you know what? She probably needs the money more than me. I'll just take care of it when I buy it, And it's just having that mindset of just trying to, I want to go through life, and I want to make, millions more dollars, but I want to do it in a way that makes win-win scenarios, and I help people out. Or there was a girl from my jiu-jitsu gym who doesn't have much money, and she was trying to sell the house of her husband. I think he had this house before they met. They got together, they bought the house, but it was so far from the gym. She was having to leave at 2 a.m, take crazy public transport to get to the gym for the morning class. And I was just helping her out, and I said, "Listen, I'm going to sell your house." I took almost no commission, and it wasn't even worth my time. It was so cheap. But I didn't do that for the money. I did it to help her out because she needs it, and she's my jiu-jitsu teammate. So it's having that kind of mindset. And so many people, they might look at me on one deal and say Lawrence is stupid because he's leaving money on the table. But I promise you, I'm going to outsell you this year, and I probably outsold you last year, and I'm going to outsell you next year, because I have big dreams and big goals, and I'm not about. I don't think that you get lost in that short-term thinking of one deal or one commission, and that the approach that I have is something that I've seen time and time again. You do better in the long run, and it's a better way of going through life.
Yeah, I love that, and I want to ask some follow-up questions, because I'm of two minds here, right? And I really struggle with this more and more the older I get, where it's I love that book, The Go-Giver. I love the idea of give, and just be a good person, and the world will reward you. And my former business partner, who I'm very close with still, shout out to Justin, he always jokes, he's like, man, you'd have way more paying coaching clients if you weren't such a intellectual philanthropist and you would quit giving all your stuff away for free. Like, you've got good stuff, quit giving it away for free and charge. So it's like part of me is very much in tune and in line with everything you just said. And then on the other side of the equation, I've just seen, I now have a 23-year book of evidence in the mortgage industry that the asshole, mercenary, it's all about me, for the most part, makes the most money, right? And it's like, I would just never have the guts to go back to a company. For example, in the boom times of COVID, when everybody and their brother was refinancing, I'm just super happy to be making more money than I've ever made before. I'm super respectful of my company. At the time was Movement Mortgage that was facilitating those transactions. They were good to me. They're a good company. I was good to them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm just happy going along, right? And then come to find out after some changes were made and whatnot, the people that just don't give a shit and they were mercenaries, they basically just went to the company and they were like, I'm leaving. I'm taking a sign-on bonus with this other company unless you retain me and pay me $500,000 right now. And they got the money because the company wanted to retain them. So I'm like, what kind of idiot am I for being like in this reciprocal relationship with my employer instead of just treating them like a number? Because at the end of the day, they're probably just going to treat me like a number, right? And so I really struggle with what you just said because I believe it in my heart and I hate it in my brain.
Well, okay, you bring up a great point. And you have to be careful with who you do that to, because there are people that will take advantage of you. And I actually fired one of my best clients. And it was a tough decision because I'm a hustler and he's owns a lot of property and he wanted to buy a lot of buildings that I'm selling, and it was a perfect match. But I think he has bipolar. He can be very nice and very charming, and then he can be very rude and very aggressive. And I realized that every transaction that I closed with him was just contentious, and he was always just trying to squeeze, can you get tenants for free if you get this, and can you squeeze the commission so I can get this a bit discounted? And he was always just pushing, and the guy doesn't need it. The guy's really wealthy. And then he was rude to one of my property managers I referred him to. And I said, our relationship is done, and blocked his number, blocked his email. So yeah, you have to be careful. And that's the same if you're working with a company. I mean, I work for a real estate company too, but the owner's my best friend, and I kind of have free reign. So it's basically like I don't have that.
Right.
So I have incredible things. So, but I know what you're saying. It's like if you don't fight for yourself, then and other people are fighting for themselves, and they're going to get better deals because they're going to negotiate better deals than you. Then you're kind of like, nice guys finish last.
Right.
That's where that phrase came from. So I think you have to just be very careful, and at the same time, it's something that you have to value yourself too. Where if someone says to me like, hey, they entice you with, I want you to list a $2 million building for me, and they know it's going to be a big commission check, but they're like, listen, I want you to do it for 3.5% because that's what Redfin would charge me. And it was like, yeah, but Redfin are terrible. I'm not Redfin. So
Right.
If you want the Redfin service, go with them. If you want me, maybe I'll drop it to 4.5%, but that's my fee. So you have to. It definitely. It's like everything, Scott. There's no solutions to life, as Thomas Sowell said. There's only trade-offs. So you have to decide. You have to respect yourself, and you have to decide where the line is. And for me, I'm very blessed that I've been doing this. I haven't been in real estate. I think it's 8 years now. And every year I'm getting rid of less clients, or natural selection. They don't want to work with me either because we're not a good fit. And almost everyone I work with, I like seeing their name pop up on my phone. I like their energy. I like what they're about. They have integrity. So for them, I'm happy to help them out. But if I notice that they're taking advantage of me, like this one guy, life's too short. I don't want that guy around. So I'm glad you said that, because it's just a good reminder that we have to, politics. I hate politics, but one thing that makes me laugh is people where they're all about Biden or they're all about Trump, and they don't see that all these issues tend to be great. It might be 80%, 20%, but it's never 100% zero. And a lot of people act like it's just so black and white, and
Right.
most issues are a bit more gray. So I think I'm really glad you said that, because you do bring up a good point. You bring up the other side of the coin.
I can tell everything I need to know about you, and I know for sure we're kindred spirits that you just referenced Thomas Sowell, because I think if, for those that don't know, Thomas Sowell is an amazing conservative economist, taught at Stanford, happens to be black, and I think because of that, because he's a black conservative, he's not nearly as well known as he would be, because he's brilliant. He's a national treasure. I think he's like 94 years old now and probably getting pretty close to death. But like one of the books that defined my thought process on economics, I'm pretty much a hardcore libertarian, politics, is Basic Economics. I think it's one of the best books ever written. And so anytime somebody references Thomas Sowell, I'm like, oh yeah, this is like my brother from another mother. So I love that, by the way. So tell me a little bit,
and likewise, Scott, we are brothers in many ways, and one of them is we're both libertarian too. I believe in smaller government. America was great because originally it used to be incredibly libertarian. The government used to be 3% of the economy, and now it's probably 35 or something crazy. So yeah, I couldn't agree more on the philosophy.
Nice. See, I knew it. Hector knows how to make an introduction. So tell me, like, you own this options trading company. You go take your sabbatical to fight for 5 years. You come back and you're like, all right, now I need a new job, and I want to get married and have a family, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How do you choose real estate? Because I always joke with my realtor friends. I'm like, every one of my realtor friends, and same with lenders, by the way, we're like, nobody grows up wanting to be a realtor. Nobody's in high school being like, man, I can't wait to be a loan officer, right? And it's like people just fall into this for weird reasons. And I know that you've been killing it. You were like the number one salesperson at your company for the last 6 years. So how do you fall into real estate? How do you make that decision? And then what has been like the key to your explosive growth over the last decade in real estate?
So that's actually a great question because, again, looking back, it's just those random meetings. So I got a good buddy Mo, who owns my real estate company. I just actually married him and his wife a few months ago. I was the officiant, and he had a long-term girlfriend. They broke up, and then he wanted to get into jiu-jitsu, and the doorman told him that I was a fighter, and so they connected us. And he had just got a German Shepherd puppy, and I had two big dogs, and so I would just see him walking his dog, and we just started chatting. And then I brought him to jiu-jitsu. He got into jiu-jitsu for a while, and then he was an attorney, and he said, "I hate being an attorney. I want to start a real estate company." And he used to say to me, "Man, you'd kill it in real estate with your accent, and you have this finance background. You could do really well." And he'd always talk about wanting to get into flips. And so he was the one where I kind of went through this period of soul searching, and it was a dark time because I had all this money from trading, kind of blew through a lot of it, lost a lot of it. And then I realized that, okay, I'm done with fighting. I was 35. I had a 3-fight win streak. I was like, a lot of my friends were saying, "Lawrence, like, don't risk brain damage. Like, you've been doing this a long time with the boxing and the MMA, and it's like you don't have anything left to prove. Like, it's time for you to stop this." I had a lot of different people tell me that, and I knew it came from a position of love. And I was like, I think there's some truth to that. It's time to step away. And I was like, what the hell do I do? And it was tough because I always thought I'd go back to trading because I was so good at it, and that whole business model had gone from the high frequency trading had taken over. So it was luckily I actually bought an investment property before, and I saw the business model, and I thought, wow, here is something that I've studied finance. I've read a lot of books. I've never really read anyone talking about real estate as an investment, and I was like, but I can see with my property, it's a great investment. It has all these different benefits, and so I was like, if I'm going to go in real estate and I'm going to do rehabs and I'm going to look to buy more investment properties, I'm going to go all in. I'm going to get my license. I'm going to become a broker. I'm going to learn everything I can. I'm going to make every connection I can. And so that's what I did is I just, the first year was rough because I was just trying to make connections. And then I started meeting developers. And as soon as I started meeting developers, I had money. So I would invest in their own projects. Then I would make really strong relationships. Then I would get introduced to other developers. And it kind of just snowballed. And I'm successful because I have repeat business, and that kind of comes back to the relationships. Like, most of my biggest listing clients are people that every year they're developers, they're going to sell a handful of buildings, so I'm gonna have all those listings. And then my buyers, it's a repeat buyers. A lot of my buyers, like, I want to buy two buildings this year and hopefully two next year. And then you close a couple of buildings, and they're like, hey, my friend wants to buy a building, my cousin wants to buy a building. So I say in real estate that, listen, like I said, the jiu-jitsu friend, I helped them buy and sell a house in areas of the suburbs that I don't have anything to do with. That was a favor. So I still do that, and I want to do that as a minority part of my business. But the majority of my business is something that I'm specialized in. And so I always tell people, if you work in real estate, on the lending side, it's a bit different. But on the real estate side, as a broker, I think you want to be specialized. So do you want to focus on, I have a good friend who's really charming. I joke, I call him 007 because he's like James Bond. He's really good at that high, expensive $1 million condos, classy. He dresses nice. He has the right talk. I said, listen, you've got to specialize in this. So if I have a guy that calls me and he's like, Lawrence, I want you to sell my $2 million condo, at the Trump. I would probably bring him on as a partner and would work it together because I think it's more, I want him to focus on that. Whereas I love focusing on a guy that calls me and he's like, hey, I have one of my clients who's got cancer and he wants to provide for his family and doesn't know how long he has left. And he said, hey, listen, I've got $500,000. I want to buy 3 buildings. What shall I do? Give me some options. He doesn't live in Illinois. He lives 5 hours from Chicago in Indianapolis. And he's like, I need your help. Like, how do I do this? How do I get a property manager? What's the best leverage I get? What's the best long-term building supply? That for me is fun, the financial engineering aspect. So I would say just try to get a niche, because then when you have a specialty, then you are providing real value. And a lot of people, maybe they've never even owned a property and someone calls them, they want to buy a multi-unit. How are they supposed to explain that business model? They don't know.
Right.
Whereas I'm just in the final edits of a book called The Forgotten Asset Class, and it's all about how to invest in real estate. I'm writing a book on it. And I never wanted to, I'm a big reader, but I never wanted to write a book. And then I realized that I would just read these books by these authors. And once you've learned enough and you've listened to enough podcasts, you start to listen to someone talk about a subject about, suddenly you realize that a lot of people are full of shit and they talk with such certainty.
Yes.
And you're like, I know that's not true. Or in real estate, I know an agent that does zero business, and I see him doing a seminar on investing in real estate, and he's got like at some bar somewhere, hey, I'm doing, and I'm like, you don't know anything about it. So that it was like the reluctant thing where I do actually know a lot about this, and that's what prompted me to write that book. But it's taken a lot of time. It's been something that it fits with my personality. I enjoy financial engineering. I enjoy numbers. I enjoy finance. I enjoy the investment business model. So it's trying to find a niche, and then you become really good at that niche, and then you develop a lot of really good contacts, and then you get paid for that knowledge and those skills. So I think it's that same approach of I don't want to get paid for not providing value. I want to get paid because I'm really good at what I do, and I create a lot of win-win scenarios for everybody.
I love that idea of the riches are in the niches, right? And it's like if you're an expert at working with developers. I've got a friend of mine, Grant Linscott. He's down in Los Angeles, and same thing, man. He was willing to go to the meetings with the developers and the super esoteric, annoying, detailed, how do you get permits approved in Los Angeles, right? And I know that those first couple years, he didn't make a ton of money, but he was sitting in all the meetings and he was understanding the conversation. And if some realtor that doesn't understand new development in Los Angeles tries to go approach those developers versus the decade of knowledge that Grant has in developing small lot subdivisions and all the intricacies that go on with marketing that and bringing them to market and selling them and explaining why it looks like a condo, but it's not a condo, like, good luck. You're not going to beat that guy. You're bringing some boxing gloves to a knife fight and you're going to die. And so I love that as advice to the realtors or the loan officers that might be listening. And, a lot of times we have to balance that with like, I got to take this deal to survive. But I tell this to loan officers all the time. I'm like, the deal you shouldn't have taken that's now wrecking your life. And you could have gone and got 5 more deals that were in your wheelhouse instead of trying to, put this square peg in this round hole. And it's just like, it's just beautiful advice, man. Like we're just speaking the same language. Tell me a little bit.
I'll say this. So sorry again.
No, you're good, you're good.
I'll say this though. Initially, it's kind of like if someone says to me, they're a young man and they say, I have no idea what to do with my career. Do you have some advice? And I would say, well, you just have to see what you don't want to do. And you have to have multiple jobs and work for multiple people and have different experiences. And then hopefully along the journey, you'll find something that resonates with you. So it's the same as real estate. Like of course, now looking back, it's easy to see that investments was perfect for me with my financial background and being an investor before having to have my license. Of course, it's easy to see. But at the time, I wasn't even seeing that because my mentor was all about luxury homes on the North Shore where he's from. And so he would talk about that a lot. And so in my head, I'm thinking, yeah, I'm doing these little deals in Chicago, but the end goal is $1 million homes in the suburbs. Like I didn't really put 2 and 2 together until a year or two into it. And then it became that natural fit. So I think when you get started, you want to take as much as you can and just try and learn everything you can. And then hopefully, naturally, you're going to fall into a bit of a niche, and hopefully, it's going to reflect the interest you have, and then you can really go all in. But initially, it is a little tricky to find that niche. And what you said is another valid point. Listen, when 2020 came, there was a period where I'm a spender. I love to spend money. I love to spend money on experiences, and suddenly we all had no income. No one planned for that, and I remember taking some shitty business, and because I'm a hustler, and I remember having this thing that happened to me where I had one of my buildings. The tenant complained that my snow guy hadn't come and done the snow, and I remember it was late, like probably 8 o'clock, and I remember just thinking, oh, I'm gonna go to the Home Depot that's open to midnight. I'm gonna buy a shovel. I'm gonna do it. It wasn't even a thought. Like, has to get done. My snow guy didn't do it. I'm just gonna do it. And then just when I was gonna get my keys to get in the car, she called. She's like, "Oh, he just came. He must have been running late." And I was like, "Okay." And I never forget that feeling where I was like, I'm so happy I still have that mentality where sometimes this is life in general. There's sometimes you have to do things you don't want to do. And it's just, that's called being an adult. And that's what any successful person you admire, maybe they love what they do 90% of the time, but I promise you there's still 10% of things they don't want to do. There's still awkward conversations. There's still things you have to do that you don't like doing. And so I was so glad that I still had that mentality. So I just want to share that. Like, there's the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and at the bottom is just survival. And when it comes to finance, when you're in tough times, you have to take whatever you can get. And then hopefully as your career progresses, like you said, you can be smarter. Don't take the one deal that's going to take as much time as five good deals because it's out of your wheelhouse. Just refer that and move on. But initially we do, so it really does. I just want to clarify that because different people are at different stages of their career.
Yeah, I know this guy. I haven't talked to him in years, and shame on me. He's a realtor. I don't even know if he's still active, but he would sit in the like Beverly Hills adjacent Laurel Canyon, and he would like sit in his tennis clubhouse or whatever, little whatever you call the place where rich people hang out. I don't know, like a golf club, but for tennis. So a tennis club, yes. I guess. And he would just take lunches there every day. And if you were in this little 6 or 7 square mile area of Laurel Canyon, he would take the listing. But he was so good at staying in touch with people that I remember the year I talked to him about this, he had referred out like 40 or 50 deals where he got 25% of the commission because he's like, if I can't be at this tennis club for lunch, I'm not taking the listing. Like if it's in Los Feliz and I'm going to sit in LA traffic for an hour, I'm referring it over to my buddy Eugene and he can take the listing. I'll get 25% for doing nothing because I know where my niche is. And because he was so disciplined, guess what? He wasn't driving across town. He could sit in that tennis club and he could just take appointments all day with people that had a kid buying in Austin, Texas. He gets to make the referral and then boom, 25% commission on a deal in Austin, Texas that he could have never serviced himself. I mean, it was just brilliant. So shout out to Tom O'Rourke if he's still doing business. I'm going to write that down. I'm going to look that guy up. Tell us, because I suspect that in Chicago, similar problems that we have in LA, where, I'd spent the first 42 years of my career before we moved up here to Vegas, and I still do most of my mortgage business there. Like affordability is a real issue, right? Finding a property that cash flows is a real issue. So what's kind of the secret sauce that you're teaching in the book, if you can give us a little sneak peek of the forgotten asset class of how can people be profitable investing in real estate in 2024?
Well, it's tough. It's very tough. I think these high interest rates are transitory, though. I think, if you look at the bond market 12 months out, they're lower. But I think the reality is going to be a lot lower in 12 months than we're seeing. And it's going to be a great for our business. And we had the exact same precedent. If you look at 2000, 2001, 2000, I think they raised them something like 5.5%. 2001, they brought them all the way back down. So the Fed has this precedent for doing these, ridiculously quick hikes and then putting it right back down. I think if you look at the inflation numbers, they're all looking really good. Inflation is under control. We do live in a very technologically driven world, and technology is deflationary, which is good. And then on top of that, you have the political pressure for the upcoming election. So I think that's a good thing. Most people buying real estate right now, though, are you talking about investors or owner occupants?
I'm talking about investors. Or actually, you yes. Lead me. You lead me. What is the book about? Is it for the owner occupant or is it for the investor?
So, I mean, my book is really about my journey with money and wealth and the lessons I learned along the way. And then I wrote it with a partner, shout out my buddy Brad. And then he's my first client and my best friend, jiu-jitsu black belt too, and he owns a lot of real estate. And we bought buildings together, we sold buildings together. And so he does a lot of the stuff that I wasn't that interested in writing about, like how to analyze the finances of a property. I do it all day for clients, so I didn't really want to write about it in the book. And how to spot a good deal, the stages from putting an offer in to closing to post-closing, all that kind of stuff. And I did more of the philosophy behind it. So most people right now that are buying, a lot of people, you'll be surprised, Scott, how many people, the 3-unit buildings in Chicago, new construction, they're going between $850 and $950, that kind of price range. That's kind of the standard for investors. in good areas like Lincoln Park, it's 2.5 million. But in the areas that investors work in, the south side, the southwest side, the west side, the kind of rougher areas where you can actually make a return, they're selling in that price range. And I've got these buyers buying cash, and I have no idea how they have $1 million cash. For me, that's mind blowing because I would have anxiety. I hate having cash. I like to always be invested and do things with my money. So you have a bunch of cash buyers, which is wild. Maybe they've sold businesses, maybe they've sold other property, but the main reason that I think people our age buy property is something that I never appreciated, and it's for the just the purely for the tax write-offs. And I used to be so fixated on cash flow, and cash flow is great. The reason real estate is great as an investment prop is because you have cash flow. You have debt pay down where every month you're paying down your principal. You have upside appreciation over time. It does tend to go up. And those three things are great. But the real cherry on top, if you're making money, is all the depreciation and the tax write-offs. So so a lot of people, they don't mind, you have two types of buyers. The first buyer doesn't mind, they want some income and they want it to be an area that's appreciating, but they don't mind if it's not appreciating when their rate is at 7.5%. They're okay with waiting and just having the tax write-offs and waiting. Because anyone buying now, I always say in their head, they should be thinking 9 to 15 months, that window. And I think it's going to be more like, 9 months. But in that window, they're going to be refinancing significantly lower interest rates. And I don't see a world in which rates come down and prices don't go up a little bit.
Right.
So I think that when I run a pro forma for someone, I have year one, the rate is at 7.5%, and year two, normally I put the taxes jumping because they normally go up in Chicago at least, and then I'm putting the rate, probably 6, which I think it could be under that. I think we could be pleasantly surprised. So I don't know how it was for your market in 2021, but for us, 2020 with COVID, there was all these people on the sidelines, and then 2021. There was just everyone was coming out of the woodwork trying to buy things.
Yeah.
So it was like, yes, everyone had a slower 2020, and then 2021 was just crazy, crazy busy. And I think it's going to be the same. Everyone had, there's something like half the agents in Illinois did either 0 or 1 deal in 2023. So they all had incredibly slow years.
Wow.
And so a lot of them have left the business. There are all these people that would have naturally bought, and they're on the sidelines. And I know a dozen investors that message me all the time, hey, what do you have coming? And I've got 300 grand in my bank. I want to buy, but I don't know if it's the right time. And I'm like, listen,
Right.
when you're ready, I'll find you something. Let me know. So that they're watching, they're waiting. So I think it's going to be a crazy busy year. But there was a building that I was selling, and I was selling it for $875, and it was an owner occupant. He could buy with a 5% down loan. He was going to live in one of the units, and his loan payment was about $7,500. He would rent the other 2 units for $5,000. So he was like, oh, $2,500. It doesn't look great. He's paying $2,500. The rent for the building was about $2,500, but he's got to put down 5%, which is 40, 50 grand. But that's today. Fast forward 12 months, he's gonna if rates go down, his loan could drop by $1,000, and then the rents are going to be going up. We're seeing rent growth year on year in Illinois, and then people don't like to talk about it, but I think this administration with the open border, I think it's going to go down as the absolute worst administration in history by far. And I think it's going to cause decades of problems. And not just in terms of, if 1% of 10 million people that came in are violent criminals, that's 100,000 violent criminals. That's bad enough. But in terms of just the infrastructure, we don't have the housing. We've had shortages of new homes being built since 2009. Here we are. We have natural legal immigration. We have population growth in America anyway. And then you have another 10, 12 million by the end of this year that are coming in. There's just going to be massive housing shortages. I think we're going to see everything, prices are going to be higher, rental prices, sale prices. And there's going to be a lot of societal problems from people fighting over resources. So I think it's going to be a very busy year for us, Scott. I think anyone involved in real estate can have a really good year in 2024, but it is also going to be very volatile. And I'm happy I'm out of Chicago, to be honest, but I worry, man. My heart's in Chicago. I have a lot of friends that live there. I know a lot of people are struggling with inflation and with the economy and with violence and all the things that people worry about. And just try and be resilient, and just when the times are good in this business, you have to push it. So I'm hoping I've got very big goals for this year. I think it's going to be a great year. I think the rates are going to be surprisingly good for us, and it's good for everybody when the rates are lower. But I do worry about all the other problems for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's like you have that supply demand curve where the interest rates should be tamping down the demand, right? It's like, I mean, inevitably, if interest rates double and payments are significantly more expensive, the product, like the house as a product, has gotten significantly more expensive in the carrying costs. But what's crazy is like the other side of the supply demand curve is there's just not enough houses. So of course, when one does come available in a nice neighborhood where multiple families can see raising their kids and being there for a generation, there's still 8 or 10 offers. So it's really weird how these two supply and demand curves, or the cost, they're at odds with each other, where I have very smart clients that are like, Scott, it doesn't make any sense. Housing has gotten twice as expensive because of interest rates in the last 18 months. And you're telling me property values are still going up? I'm like, yeah, everywhere but Austin, because they saw such an explosive growth. I'm like, everywhere else, yeah, we're getting, I just did a loan for a gentleman in Chicago. I wish I could remember the neighborhood. And it's like, 18 months ago, he got an appraisal for $1.6 million because he was doing his refinance. And then we were taking some money out so he could buy another beautiful property down in Florida that he's going to retire to one day. And his property values are up, $120,000 in 18 months. And that's a very conservative bank appraisal. So it's this weird time where I get it, and I feel really bad for the people that are getting priced out. But it's not like there's going to be some massive correction, because there's just not enough housing stock for all the people that need houses. And hopefully you got developers bringing stuff online.
I'm definitely trying. I've got a lot of developers building, but I'm so glad you said that, Scott, because I have a whole chapter on this. Is price is supply and demand times demand, and so you can have a lot less demand. So that's what we saw last year. We saw these rates go up, and suddenly affordability goes down. People are priced out. So of course the demand is tempered, because the supply is also tempered. Because now, if you have a 3% interest rate, you're not going to list your house for sale, even though you kind of want to sell it and get a bigger house. You're not going to, because it doesn't make sense. So suddenly the demand is down so much that the price is going to stay high, because as the demand goes down and the supply goes down, it balances each other out. So the price has to keep going. And you have to think about, what is a house, or what is a building? A building is materials, and materials are commodities, and commodities are priced in dollars, and dollars, the purchasing power of the dollar is steadily going down. In 2020, we added 40% to the money supply of all money printed since the start of the Republic. I mean, it's just insane. So things, if you look at things in terms of the dollar, it looks like the S&P has had this, incredible run the last 20 years. But if you price the S&P in terms of gold, suddenly it looks a bit flatter. If you price the S&P in terms of Bitcoin, it's actually negative. So it's a thought experiment. I always tell people, like, think about, you're thinking about things are getting more expensive in a currency that's losing purchasing power. So it's very deceiving. So we have seen real estate go up, because real estate is a great safe haven. But a lot of this is because the dollar, the purchasing power is getting weakened. And that's why I'm very, very high on real estate as an investment, because I think you just have that built-in inflation protection. Because I always look in Chicago, and I think where you are, it's the same. Some of these prices, like you mentioned, in Austin or in LA, the prices are so expensive to me. But like I was talking about that building earlier for $875,000. This is a brand new building with 3 units. Each unit has 3 beds and 2 baths. So you have a 3-level building with 9 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms, brand new construction. Everything's beautiful. All the appliances are stainless steel. Comes with a year warranty. It's less than $1 million. $1 million in London is not getting you shit. It's it's just, right. It's not. Same in Manhattan. It's just so I still think relatively, real estate in places like where you are and where I am, I think it's relatively cheap.
This is just my own curiosity getting the best of me. What did you used to trade when you were a trader? Were you a commodities guy, a Forex guy, pork bellies? Like, what were you trading?
So I was a bond option trader. So I would trade options on government bonds.
Oh, yeah, you're really smart. I already thought you were smart, but if you're a bond trader, and I think my internet might have just cooked out there for a second, so sorry about that. But I was just saying you're really smart, because like bond traders, for anybody who's ever read Liar's Poker or any of those books, bond traders have to know everything that's going on in the stock market and everything that's going on in the bond market. So you were shorting and going long government bonds?
Yes, but that's future traders. So I traded options on the bonds. So it's like a second derivative. So every option is, you have the right to sell and the right to buy at different prices. So as the bond price moves, option prices move, and you can have these strategies where you can hedge yourself from different positions. So what I did on the pit is I provided liquidity for people that wanted options to protect themselves. So like someone like you, like, your company, say you want to protect yourself from rates going up even higher. You can protect yourself with options. Who takes the other side? People like me in the trading pit. And then I have to protect my positions from the underlying price movements by hedging with different things. So it's much more sophisticated than just trading futures where you can just, buy and sell a future. With options, there's a whole sheet with, different months, different prices, and everyone has a relationship to the other one. So it was very, very intellectually challenging. I mean, it took me 2 years till I started trading, and that was, studying every day. And then when I started trading, initially the learning curve was just so steep. So it was, what's so funny is I remember the first Christmas I went home when I was trading, and I realized that my brain had grown so much because you had to suddenly listen to 10 brokers all screaming at the same time while you're watching the underlying price move, while you're looking at your sheets with every option with a different, this is pre-computers when it's still paper sheets, where you're still looking at the price change of 80 different options as the price is moving. And I literally just grew this aspect of my brain where it became so sharp. But I remember after doing it for a decade, my brain was tired, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I pushed it so much, I became exhausted. And Bertrand Russell, the great British philosopher, might have won 2 Nobel Prizes. I think he won one for mathematics and one for peace, maybe. But he was very, very smart, wrote a lot of incredible books. And I used to have a photo of him smoking his pipe, and it was on my office door as a trader. I loved him. But he wrote this book, Principle of Mathematics, and he said it took him a decade to write it. And he said his brain was never the same since because it was just such hard work. And I remember thinking that's exactly how I felt when I left trading. I was like, that was a great period of my life, but I could never do that again. It's like push my brain too much.
And I know a little bit about this world just from understanding how like some pieces of our secondary desk work, when a mortgage company has to hedge out 100 million
Yes.
or $1 billion of loans that are funding, loan officers think like, oh, well, I locked the loan. Some company must lock the loan. It's like, no. They're hedging for that in 45 days they can deliver the loan at a certain rate. So I don't think people understand the volume of trading options. Do you remember off the top of your head, like the largest volume trading day you had, or like maybe biggest wins, biggest loss? Because I think when people think about trading, they're thinking about their own stock portfolio. Oh, there's a couple $100,000 in there, or there's $1 million. But when you're trading options, you might be moving like tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars in like a couple clicks, right?
Yes. Well, so the big banks do have swings like that. When you're a small group, it's a bit smaller. So I mean, my best days were up and down about $250,000, which is a lot for a young man to have a swing of $250,000. Because when you work for a company, it's like it's ones and zeros on a page. But then when I left, I actually started at my company. I was in Holland just before September the 11th. So that day they made $2.5 million just because they happened to be lucky and have options. So the markets just went haywire and suddenly the options were worth so much. And this is a small group. It's not a big bank. It's a small group of guys made $2.5 million together, which is a lot of money. But for me, that meant nothing when I was at a company because you don't actually get to keep that, Scott.
Right.
Whereas when you work for yourself, I had a backer that backed me and it was 50-50. And above a certain amount, I think it was 60-40 my way. So, as a young man, I remember when I think I was fighting in the Golden Gloves and I had a bad day and it was, 120 grand. And I'm thinking, man, I just lost 60 grand of my own money and I wasn't wealthy back then. And I was like, that was pretty painful. And then I had to go home, lick my wounds, and then go to the boxing gym. It was a lot of stress, and that's why I still think those boxing years, winning the Golden Gloves was one of my proudest achievements because I was dealing with a young man with so much stress from trading, and then on top of that, I had the stress from the fighting. But it definitely built character, yeah.
Because you have an expertise in this, I mean, looking at government bonds for years and understanding what the prime rate is doing, you mentioned something about, hey, the Fed has this history of hiking rates up super fast and then dropping them. It always seems like, and I'll steal this from Barry Habib, who's kind of like the go-to finance guy in the mortgage space who talks about this kind of stuff. He's like, the Fed always seems to be skating to where the puck was. They're not skating to where the puck is. They're definitely not Wayne Gretzky where they're skating to where the puck's going to be. And it's like, to me, I look at this and I'm like, all right, the chairman of the Federal Reserve currently is not an economist. He was a trial lawyer. And so is it stupidity or is it like something more nefarious? I just don't understand it because the Fed almost always seems to overshoot and overcorrect, where they're creating these cycles of like boom and bust. And it's like, hey, you guys have this crazy dual mission of like keeping full employment and keeping inflation at a tameable rate. Those two things seem like they can't work in conjunction to each other, but with it, whatever. But why are they always going through these boom and bust cycles instead of like just slowly skating to where the puck's going to be? You know, this idea of like a soft landing. When they started saying that about the Fed, I just like laughed out loud. I'm like, has nobody been paying attention for 40 years? Soft landing my ass.
Brother, I liked you before and I like you even more now because what you said is exactly true, that the Fed are terrible. And if you look at the committee, a lot of them are just academics and they're academics with no skin in the game, with no real life experience. And I mean, I don't know if you saw the after the Israel attacks, if you saw the academics at Harvard and these institutions, I've lost all respect for them as you know, these chairmen, these woke chairmen who have just never done anything, and they're just so ideologically captured, and they're not teaching people how to think. They're teaching people how to be woke robots. You know, it's just, I just have no respect for anyone at the Federal Reserve. They just don't have skin in the game, and I couldn't agree with you more. They do overshoot everything, and a lot of Austrian economics think that they're causing these boom and busts, and that's the world we live in. The only way that we might have a soft landing is not through any skill on the Fed's part. It's just how incredibly resilient this market's been, and how if in the next few months they lower rates again, we might somehow have survived. But I would have thought it would be a lot worse, and I'm pleasantly surprised. And the inflation numbers seem to be cooperating. But you're 100% right. The Fed are terrible. I mean, so many people get so wrapped up in the election, but really the people that have so much power that can make or break economies is the Fed chairman and the whole members of the committee, and then also like the people that run these cities and these crazy liberal district attorneys that let out 20-time offenders and things like that. They're the ones that we should be concerned about. But no one really gave those people any thought up until recently. Right. But for years when I was trading, Alan Greenspan was this revered, idealized person, and they'd always tell me, I remember when I first moved here, like, do you know who the most powerful person in the world is? Not President Bush, it's Alan Greenspan. And they had this reverence for him. But he's just as ideologically captured. When he was young, he was a fan of Ayn Rand, and Ayn Rand was all about free markets. And the Federal Reserve is against free markets. They're manipulating markets, and as you said, they're always behind the ball, and they're always, they're always too late, or they're exemplifying the problem. So yes, I'm very anti the Fed, and you're 100% right. We have to know what we have, and we have to work with what we've got. But I just don't have any respect for academics.
Yeah, I wonder sometimes if they just don't have any real friends who are living in the real world. You know, for example, my brother-in-law is the best leading indicator of where the economy is going. Because, man, I don't know why we keep having problems with the internet. Sorry about that. My brother-in-law is the best leading indicator of where the economy is going because he repossesses cars for a living. So when he's really busy and he's coming to Vegas and he's got money for him and his wife to party, I'm like, oh man, the economy is going the wrong direction because people can't make their $400 Toyota Prius. And it's like, he repossesses a ton of Uber cars. If your sole source of making money is Uber and you're not making your car payment, like something is going really, really wrong. And so I just wonder, like, do Alan Greenspan and, Jerome Powell, the current, like, are they so insulated in their bubble of rich academics that like they just don't know any normal people that are like, hey bro, milk's like $7.50 a gallon. This shit's killing me. I just wonder if they're so insulated from the ramifications of their own policy. Like maybe they're not being nefarious. Maybe they just really are that ignorant.
I couldn't agree more. That's so interesting what you said, because that's so true. That's such a good barometer for the economy. Repossessed cars. I think that's one of the biggest problems we have is people with no skin in the game. So, for instance, it's the Trudeau in Canada who's got his private security and he's saying no one can have guns in the country. It's the people. I remember when there were the George Floyd riots. There was a guy from CNN. And he was like, yeah, they're burning down Minnesota. Like, go for it. Like, burn it down. He was all happy about it. And then 2 days later, he was freaking out. But he's like, these animals are outside the gates of my private residence. Someone get these animals out and get them arrested. And it's like, dude, 2 days ago, you were saying, yes, burn it down. And then as soon as it comes to you, you're freaking out. And that's one of the reasons I'm so happy with the guy from Texas who's busting all these cities like Chicago, like New York, that are saying, oh, we're a haven for illegals to come here. But it's easy for them to say because they're not on the border with tens of thousands of people walking in every year. They get a few busloads of people, and now suddenly they're freaking out. And the mayor in Chicago is like, we can't do this. Like, well, you shouldn't have said we're a city that accepts immigrants, and it's like it's so easy. Words are so cheap now, and it's people that are making policies with no skin in the game, and it's infuriating. But you know what? I think it's our duty, Scott, to be eternally optimistic, and it's so easy to focus on the negative. But I don't know about you, but in my own, maybe I'm lucky, but in my own personal interactions, I normally speak to wonderful people that have the same values as you and I, and everyone I interact with is pleasant, and we all want the same thing, and we work hard, and we want a roof over our heads, and we want food on the table, we want to love our significant other and love our kids and pursue our goals with jiu-jitsu. So I just think it's easy to get caught up in the noise of the craziness going on. And politics, I think, is a pendulum that's swinging. And I think we've obviously swung way too far the one way, and hopefully we're going to, self-correct and come back the other way. I as an immigrant to this country, I'm so grateful for the opportunities that we have in America. Like I spent a significant amount of time. I taught English in Russia. I boxed in Cuba for a month. I trained out there, and I spent a month traveling in Venezuela. And you talk to the people of those socialist and communist countries, and when they talk, the way they light up when they talk about America and the freedom here and the opportunity, it's something that I never want to take for granted. And yes, America has problems, but we also have the free speech to be able to criticize the people in power without getting shot, or arrested.
Yeah.
So I think that's something I always want to state that yes, we do have problems here. But there isn't, if there was a better country that for me to have opportunity and raise my family, I'd have moved there, and I'm not leaving. So I think that I just want to kind of stress that, because it's very easy to get caught up in it and not appreciate what you have. And there's, they say if you can afford a Starbucks coffee, you're in the top 1% of the global population, because most people in the world live on less than $1 a day. So these are just such good reminders. I always feel like when you go through tough times, it's because your problems are your problems and your world is your world. And it's so nice to take a step back and realize how a lot of the things that we struggle with are first world problems, and that bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the bottom is met for most people. And that's just such a good reminder.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that, man. It is such a good reminder. Like, I've been having some leaking issues here in my podcast studio, and it's super easy to mad at the contractor, mad at this, literally mad at God for making it rain in Vegas. It never rains in Vegas. And I'm like, what am I talking about, man? I got to mop up some water, and then I go to my perfectly heated house at exactly 71 degrees where I'm going to have a big dinner, an amazing family, and then I'm going to go hang out and go to the gym tomorrow with another 30 like-minded guys, and my kids are healthy. I'm like, what am I doing complaining about some water seepage into my podcast studio in a space that was never supposed to be a podcast studio? So yeah, I love that. That's a great reminder and a great way to wrap up this conversation. I feel like we could talk for hours, but I've got two questions I always end with, but I feel like you have a thought. Go for it.
Before you start with this, I want to ask you something, because how old are your kids?
My kids are just turned 6 and about to turn 8, and then I have a 21-year-old from a previous one-night stand.
Well, kudos to you for being a good dad to your 21-year-old. I'm sure you were a young man. That couldn't have been easy. But I want to ask you, because I'm always picking people's brains on parenthood. I have a 3-year-old son, and we're trying for number 2. And what is something you wish you knew when you first became a parent? I would love to get some advice from you and some wisdom from you.
Oh, man. Do you want the thing I'm actually doing well, or the thing I wish I could do better?
Either. Both would be great.
So the thing that I wish I could do better is I'm in a group called Front Row Dads. You got to check out the podcast. It's called Front Row Dads with John Vroman. Hector's in it as well. And I'm in awe, in absolute awe of the fathers who have kicked their cell phone addiction, right? And I've got every excuse why I need it for work, and I've got to be available for my realtors, and I got to be available for my coaching clients. But the reality is, in those moments when I give my kids the finger and I say, hey, just 1 minute because I'm finishing this, what I'm really doing is I'm executing a move on chess.com, or I'm watching an Instagram reel or something. So the thing that I'm really trying to focus on and get better, and I'm failing miserably, is put the fucking phone down and focus on your kids. Because that's a horrible message I'm sending them that this, Black Mirror, like the Netflix show, is more important to them. So that's something that I'm working on. Something that I'm really proud of is that we're doing physical activity together. Both of my kids are in jiu-jitsu. They're both constantly asking me to go ride bikes, and we're really big in our house into conversations. So it's like, with your kids, you get super self-conscious. I'm like, I can't really execute on a double leg takedown, and he's a little bit behind in like where he should be reading for grade level, and my daughter could be doing this better. But then when they meet other adults, and my friends are like, dude, your daughter's 5. She just turned 6. I got this compliment a month ago. Your daughter's 5, and she just asked me what was the best part of my day when we were having dinner together. And she really meant it. Like, she really wanted to have a conversation about what was the best part of my day. Like, what the fuck, man? Your kids are like teenagers or adults. And that makes me really proud because we're constantly just bringing conversation, driving back and forth to jiu-jitsu. We're asking good questions. We're trying to have good conversation versus, a lot of parents these days just throw them the iPad and be like, I want to have dinner. I want to relax at this restaurant, watch this iPad, where I'm like, no. From the time that they could sit still for 5 minutes, it's like, no, we go to dinner together. We eat sushi. We're going to be here for an hour and a half. You're not going to get the phone or the iPad. We're going to have conversations. And then we ate way too much rice. So we're going to get up tomorrow morning and go do jiu-jitsu. And so like, I feel like we're winning at that. And now I've just got to get rid of the phone because I set good boundaries for them, and I need to now set better boundaries for myself.
Man, that's so beautiful. I couldn't agree with you more on the phone. It's so hard when you use it for your job. I think about my dad. He was a pilot when I was growing up, and he'd be gone for 4 or 5 days at a time. It sucked. I'd miss him. But when he was home, he was home. He never got a work call. He never had a phone to distract him. He was so present from making us breakfast, to taking us to school, to taking us to activities, to hanging out with us. And so that's something that it is a battle for us because we do legitimately need it for our work. But yeah, of course, we fuck around on it too. So I love that. And that's so beautiful about just doing activity together with him. I have a gym in my basement, and my wife last week, she got this crazy infection that led to like blood poisoning and liver getting her kidneys, and it was crazy. She's fine now, but we went to the ER. She was in the ER for 5 days getting IVs and antibiotics. It was really scary, and I wasn't getting much sleep, and I was trying to juggle looking after my son and work and just looking after 3 dogs and just life, and I was just overwhelmed and tired. And then he was being, his routine was thrown out. He wasn't seeing his mum too much. He was going to the hospital with me, so he was acting out. He was being a little shit. So I pulled out my old boxing gloves, and I've got a bag downstairs, and I'm just hitting this bag. He's in his playroom, and he must have heard the noise because he came out. He runs out and he tries to put on my other pair of gloves. It's way too big for him. He just sees them in the corner. He's trying to put them on. And then he's like running between my legs, giggling. And it was just such a beautiful moment. And I'm so close. I think he can start jiu-jitsu maybe in about a year. And I think that's so amazing. Like, what a gift that you're giving your kids. You're giving them the gift of not only the ability to protect themselves, but you're giving them the ability to have a growth mindset, to realize that effort is going to lead to results, the ability to have a team environment, the camaraderie of the team, the ability to have confidence to stand up straight and know they can handle themselves. Like, you're giving them a literal superpower for life. And so you're doing an amazing job. So I find that really inspiring.
Thanks, man. And you know what I've thought about is like, gentlemen like us, like we waited till later in life to have kids. We have a certain level of wealth and lifestyle. I'm really worried, like, am I robbing my kids of the grit and the determination and the hunger to like go make it in this world? Because when my kid needs a new bike, he just gets a new bike. Like there's no, hey, we have to wait till Christmas and I need you to go save half the money for yourself and stuff. It's like, if he outgrows his bike, we go get a new bike. And I'm like, am I robbing him of that determination? And so in my mind, and maybe I'm just kidding myself, but in my mind, if he can learn the stress of having somebody on top of you trying to choke you at 7, 8 years old, and he can like, build some grit and he can flex that muscle, like maybe that'll make up for the fact that I was better off than my parents were financially, and I'm spoiling them a little bit. At least that's the story I tell myself. Time will tell.
No, that is 100% correct, because I've had that exact same thought. And he's going to get the resilience and the hard shit through sports, not through life. So you're 100% right on that. And I agree 100%.
Awesome, man. So I always like to finish with 2 questions. We're filming this in February of 2024. It'll probably come out in about a month in March. So for 2024, what are you most looking forward to, either personally, professionally, in the country, whatever? And then what's your favorite movie and why? I feel like I'm such a movie junkie. I can learn a lot about somebody by knowing what their favorite movie is and why.
I'm going to start with the movie. That's such a good question because I've seen so many great ones. I'm going to say a movie, an old movie that I watched in college, and I've seen it many times since. It's the martial arts epic Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon,
Oh, so
and
good.
I just love the character of the leading actor and his girl on there. I just think they have so much integrity, and it's beautiful. The cinematography, just the scenery, the music. It's beautifully done. And I remember I watched that when I was just kind of getting serious into martial arts, and I remember thinking I want to be a man like him. Like the lead character in there.
Yeah.
He's so noble. He's so strong and powerful, but he's kind. And I always thought if you're kind but you're weak, you kind of have to be kind. But the character that makes all other characters possible is strength. Because if you're strong and you choose to be kind or you choose to be compassionate, you don't have to be, but you choose it. And that always really resonated with me. I remember thinking I want to be like that character. So I would say that's it's an old one, but that's
I
my
love that,
favorite.
man. And there's a stoicism to him.
In terms of 2024, oh sorry.
Oh, I was just saying there's a stoicism in that character where it's like I can't really explain it. He's a badass, but you don't really understand why. And he's just he's so humble while also having so much strength. It's like I really, really love that. And I love that character.
What I'm excited for 2024, honestly, is I know it's going to be a year of struggles, of good things, of bad things, of ups, of downs. But I think that there's a huge opportunity in general in the real estate space. And I think that we're going to maximize it, both you and I, and hopefully anyone listening, is take the time to maximize the good times, but also just enjoy the process. And I know it's cheesy, and I know we started this conversation kind of talking about this, but just enjoy the grind. And I know for a fact that when we look back at these years in many, many decades to come, we'll appreciate these as just great times in our life. When our kids were young, when we were juggling all these different things, when you're striving for your brown belt now in jiu-jitsu, it's so cool. That's your new mission. And we're just trying to be our best selves. And I'm just determined, and I know for a fact that I'm going to have much more appreciation now for the actual journey. And that's something that I never had when I was young, but it's something that I'm so glad that I've come to that realization, and I'm determined to live my life moving forward, just really appreciating the journey.